So with a quorum, I'd like to open the ABR meeting for December 13th. First item on general business is public comment. Any member of the public may speak to the ABR on an item that's not related to an item already on the agenda. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to do that? Seeing none, I'll return it back to approval of the minutes of the ABR meeting of November 29th.
Also moved.
First by Paul. I need a seconder. Second by Keith. Do we have any comments?
Yeah, I wasn't here last week for that.
Comments for that? Okay, so does anybody have any items that need to be corrected on the minutes? They looked fine to me as well. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains? One abstention. Motion carries. And then we have the consent calendar. Tony?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do we
For-
need,
this
we have
would
2
be-
dates, right?
Yeah, this is for consent calendar last week, December the 6th. So you can either make a motion before I read it or...
Would somebody like to make a motion? Paul? Second by Keith?
Okay, so that was December 6th. ABR consent, we had item A, 936 San Pasqual, was continued to January 3rd at consent. Item B, 608 Anacapa Street, was postponed 1 week at the applicant's request. Item C, 617 Bradbury Avenue, this was a review of the landscaping only. It got a preliminary approval as submitted for landscaping. Item D, 1015 San Andres Street, was postponed indefinitely at the applicant's request. Consent last week was reviewed by Gary Mosel and Chris Gilliland.
All right. So all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Tony. Then we have a consent for today.
Yep.
So can I have a maker of that motion, please?
So moved.
Keith, seconded by Chris.
All right. Consent calendar today, December 13th. We had item A, 216 Natoma Avenue. Got a final approval of the landscaping with condition. That was just, they'd already had a final of the architecture. They were just here for a final of the landscaping. Item B, 330 West Cannon Perdido, was referred to the full board. So we'll try to squeeze that in at the beginning of the meeting today, right after general business. Just one question regarding the windows for that project. Item C, 1720 San Andres Street, got a final approval of the architecture and the landscaping with a condition. Item D, 219 Sycamore Lane, got a final approval as submitted of the architecture and landscaping. Item E, 3025 Della Vina Street, was a review after final for a revised retaining wall, and that got a final approval with conditions. Item F, 1015 San Andres Street, got a final approval with condition. Consent today was reviewed by Don Sherry and Chris Gilliland.
Thanks, Tony. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Do we have any announcements, requests by applicants, or further agenda items and appeals, Tony?
I don't have anything.
Does anybody have any? Yeah. For item 1?
Madam Chair, also Clay Arell will not be attending today.
Oh, okay.
Curiosity question.
Yeah.
If he steps down on item 1, would we have a quorum?
No.
So
But we do have an item before item 1, and we have a quorum for that item. That's the referred item from consent. So, but we will have to take a short recess if we don't get somebody else to come in.
Okay.
So,
Item 1.
so subcommittee reports, any? No?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to comment. Last week I wasn't, or 2 weeks ago I wasn't here, and there was discussion about the 101 design review team, and I'm actually on that subcommittee. And it wasn't mentioned, but one of the main focuses, one of which was the underpass for the bike lane that goes under Hot Springs, and the other item that wasn't mentioned was adding a third northbound lane at Salinas Street. And Caltrans is hoping to squeeze that into their current approval. And then what happens is when they add that third lane, the median is reduced or actually eliminated, and a lot of the planting along the wall is eliminated as well. So we're trying to find a way to work with them. We actually have a meeting on Wednesday, I believe, with the DRT. So I just wanted to throw that out there as kind of what's happening with the 101 review.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks. I was wondering what was going on with that. All right, so we do have a referred item from consent. If we
Steve,
could
you
get
wanna come up?
the
This-
applicant to come.
Yeah, this is 330 West Cannon Perdido Street.
330 West Cannon Perdido Street. And what this is, Gary, and Chris was here, but I want Gary to hear this too, so I wanted to tell you. And everybody else. The reason it got referred is this is the project that we saw, and it got put on today's consent agenda, and you all will probably remember it as being a project that we really liked, and then it got sent to consent not only for preliminary but for final, and I reviewed it, and I reviewed the details, which were minimal but sufficient, and we all liked the project very much. And the only thing that I could not remember, and the applicant seems to think that we discussed it, and I didn't feel comfortable approving it, were the proposal for Milgard vinyl windows in the color that you see on the finish schedule that Gary's got. We could put that up on the screen if we need to, but it's that beige color, and it wasn't written in the minutes, and it probably wasn't reviewed at the meeting because we were in conceptual approval at the time. But the applicant seemed to think that we all had a conversation about being okay with the Milgard vinyl window on this project. So that's why it's here. And I asked him at consent to bring copies of some photos that reflect his last project, with which we apparently approved with vinyl windows, or at least they were installed that way. And I'm sure they were approved, although we haven't checked the records. And I told him to bring some examples of the vinyl windows because the board would probably ask to see those. And so your name for the record, and I'll let you just speak to that.
Yeah, my name is Steve Harrell, and they are a high-quality vinyl window. It's not the cheapest line that they make. It's got a sculptured detail to it. It's got sculptured muttons. When they're recessed back into the wall, they look really, really nice. And I think that the beige coloring really offers a much more rich look to them. And I think they're great for maintenance and salt air and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of maintenance, I think they're very well suited for this project.
All right.
Dual glazed, high efficiency, easy to clean.
So I just didn't feel comfortable making the call because I didn't remember the conversation, and I would like to look to the board to see if they remember that conversation, or how everybody feels about it. So I'm open to comment. Keith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't recall talking specifically about vinyl windows with him, but there's a lot of things I don't recall. I think generally we would prefer a clad aluminum product that would perhaps give you more opportunity with colors. So I see what my other board members think, but this was a well-received project. I think architecturally it was quite well done, and we were probably looking to detailing that was commensurate with all that. So.
Okay, thanks.
My question or comment is, Are you doing 2x6 exterior studs and then recessing the windows, or are you doing 2x4 exterior and recessing the windows? Or
It's a 2x4 detail, but get the full 3.5-inch recess on the windows.
do you have that as a detail on the
Yeah.
plan?
It's right here. This is the detail that he provided for the windows.
Oh, okay. Personally, I would be okay with the vinyl windows because they're recessed back, and what we don't like to see is when the nailing flange is basically flush with the plaster on the outside.
All my windows are going to be recessed.
And that was the detail, and that's what these photographs show, but it was more...
And actually, on those photographs, the detail, the recess is only 2 inches. So this will be even better with a 3.5-inch recess.
Some of them are 2, but some of them...
The tiny
a lot of them are 3.5.
windows are 2 inches. But what I'm saying is, on those, even on the larger ones, there were 2-inch recesses.
I do recall this. I saw this once at consent, and we did have it on the general meeting. At that time, he already had a detail of the windows, and he did have the vinyl windows on there. And one of the things that I said at the meeting, at the general board meeting, was that we'd like to see those windows recessed back. And he did come back with a detail that he recessed the windows. But there was conversation about the window at the general board meeting.
Thanks, Gary.
I don't necessarily have an opinion either way, being the landscape architect.
But the pictures show a pretty nice looking window.
Yeah, I think they are pretty nice. I think it's going to be fine. I just wanted the opinion on the board. So
Great.
To close this project out, if somebody is prepared to make a motion for final approval, all the other details that I reviewed on consent were fine. I have 100% faith in the applicant to execute this project in a quality manner.
Thank you so much.
And I'll make a motion for final approval of the drawings as submitted.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, Gary. Or maybe Chris, because you reviewed the landscape at consent. We'll just put Chris down.
So that'll be final. The
That would be
architecture
final.
as submitted, and the landscape
And the
had a
landscape.
couple of conditions.
Approved with conditions. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Helped to see.
You want to keep these photos?
It helped to see the photos. Let's just keep the photos. Yeah.
Fine with me.
Thanks.
That's it all the county.
All right, so we have a quorum for item number 1, and Keith is stepping down. So item number 1 is 4151 Foothill Road. Proposal to construct 2 two-story commercial office buildings to be used by Sansom on a 4-acre site. You've seen this before. This is the 3rd concept review. We can make comments only. Project requires environmental assessment, compatibility analysis, and planning commission for an annexation, general plan amendment, zone change, and development plan approval. Your name for the record?
Richard Six of Lindvik and Minor.
Michael Tobes of the Tobes Group.
Martha DeGazis of Arcadia Studio.
Martha, will you turn that on?
Just to kick this off, we normally would not be back before the ABR now, but since we were here before with a 3-building concept of about 67,000 square feet, we signed a letter of intent with Sansom Medical Clinic. They're going to occupy the entire campus, but because it's a medical office and medical clinic use, their parking requirements are greater, so that we've essentially reduced the square footage of the building and added to the parking to increase the parking ratio. We had a meeting with the planning staff, and they were positive about the changes, but they said because we made this change, they suggested that we come back to the ABR, so we are back with you today. There was a building here in that location, what we called Building B. Now that's been eliminated. We have a new Building B where Building C was located before. We netted about 9,000 square feet less building. Building B before was about 13,000 feet. We've added about 3,500 feet at the north end of Building A, but the net reduction is about 9,000 square feet, and of course the parking ratio has increased now to meet the needs of Sansom. With that, I'll turn it over to Richard and let him talk to you about, because there were some comments from the Architectural Board before about the architecture. We think we have addressed those.
Did we read the minutes?
Yeah, do we have the minutes, Tony, from the previous meeting? Maybe we just do that, Richard, unless you have a copy of those.
I have a
You do?
copy of them, so I could go
Do you want to
through it
just
quickly.
Maybe we just go through them one by one. It looks like that's what you were
Okay.
going to do, but I would like to get, if we have a copy, I'd like to just have it with me so I can review it with you.
Staff thought you might want to also read the new project description.
Oh, okay. I can do that. Really quickly, proposal to construct two-story commercial office buildings. Before it said 3, right? For a total of 57,887 square feet to be used by Sansom on a proposed 4-acre site in the proposed C1 SD2 zones. Building A, 45,105 square feet. Building B, 13,532 square feet. The proposal includes demolition of the existing 1,750 square foot gas station and on-site remediation, and proposes 57,173 square feet of landscaping, bioswales, 226 parking spaces, and 24 bike spaces, public improvements including sidewalks and parkways. 17,747 cubic yards of grading is proposed, and the project requires PC review for annexation, general plan amendment, zone change, and development plan approval.
Great.
Okay.
So just
Go
just to
ahead.
pick up on the consequences to the site of the removal of the building, because we don't have a need for a flat plateau anymore, the mid parking will slope down, so we've been able to eliminate. There was a 4 to 5 foot retaining wall between the two buildings, so we've been able to eliminate that. With the parking up to the road, we have introduced screening there, which Martha will introduce elevation and so forth of it there, and we maintain the link between the two buildings through the parking lot to provide pedestrian cohesiveness. Because they are medical buildings, the code requires that each main entry have a automobile drop-off and a covered walkway to the main entry, so you'll see those in the architecture. There was a very minor comment and landscape-wise about an existing tree here, and we've jogged the sidewalk accordingly to better protect that tree. If you go to A4, previously, the comment was to study the flat parapet between the two masses of Building A. So prior to this, we had a low parapet here and then a much higher continuous parapet and back in this position here. We've reduced those parapets, and to camouflage or hide the equipment, we're returning those parapets. So the consequences on the elevations are here, as opposed to having a continuous, much higher parapet all the way across here. It really reduces that element. Also, there was to study the roof design for more opportunities to add additional character. We really didn't feel that there was that much to do, and if we started to manipulate these roofs even more, it would be, what would you say, a fake or a synthetic solution. That's a very, the architecture is has a lot of integrity, and to flip and try to fake different roof planes was not the best. On Building A, we certainly have many different roof forms. We did, however, on Building B now, we had just a simple cut in the parapet right here, and now this is a full parapet that extends above the roof significantly, and you can see that in these 6. So here we've got, instead of just a simple roof line eave cut, we've got a full parapet and a flat roof effect. Returning with additional architectural details of Art Deco and craftsmanship. Of course, that's after Planning Commission, but we have investigated and looked at improving the spires. The spires were a little bulky and awkward at earlier. What we have done is introduced a central rib at 45 degrees to the plane of the chimneys, a very Deco type thing to do, and peaked it up at the top. We've also articulated how that spire would interlace with the eaves by, you see, each one of these there's a drop in the downspouts. So we harmonize that drop of the downspouts with a plaster element, so that it doesn't look like the ends of the eaves and overhangs are just cut off. They're more shapely and more elegant. As far as the additional depth to the windows, we have on the sections here, you can see that initially, the building wall increases with depth as we get down to the to the first floor. So this first floor windows are all significantly deep. However, what we began with up on the second floor was a 4-inch stud bearing wall, continuous down. We've increased that to 6. We'll have a 1.5 to 2 inch deep aluminum window, so we'll have a significant return on the window there. And then last but not least are the introduction of these new drop-off elements are simply a reflection of the architecture, and primarily plain off the ribs, very simple. Again, introducing the diagonal rib, very flat roof with skylights in the bays. This building has a 3-bay, and the the Building A has a 2-bay. So that's just basically very simple and so forth. One of the nice things we have been able to do, wise decision we made, was to enter Building A at the grade level as opposed to having exterior ramps and stairways as we did prior. So that will be a much straightforward and more elegant entry. So I think that covers the architecture part of it.
Martha, do you want to cover the landscaping?
The landscape plan is essentially as it was in the earlier iteration with the middle building, except as you can see we've got the parking lot there now. The main challenge or objective was to create a little denser screen to sort of eliminate the view of that parking lot. So what we've done, we have olive street trees that have been decided on for Cienegaitas Road, and so what we did at the location of that parking area is sort of double up the olives, and they are alternating across the front of those screen walls that I will in this location here. And so that is depicted in this elevation. So they create a rather nice, dense, grove-like quality in front of those lower screen walls there, and we think that's going to be a nice effect and give a nice kind of grove quality to the olive trees. The olive trees also occur across the street in front of the La Colina Village apartments. And on the ends of each of that bay there, in front of the parking, we have 2 coast live oaks, and those reflect this existing coast live oak in the planting area that is at the mouth of the parking lot. Again, the parking lot trees are the Australian willow, so that's a nice dense evergreen tree, and the trees along the Highway 154 on-ramp are a mixture of the Australian willows and the coast live oaks, and then we have some incense cedar trees that provide additional screening. And then, of course, the existing trees on the on the Caltrans property there. Some of the other trees on the site are for accent. We have the jacaranda trees along Foothill, and then surrounding the buildings we have a mixture of diamond pittosporum and paperbark trees, melaleuca trees, and Canadian redbuds or eastern redbud trees. So other essential features of the landscape site are we have some open areas here. We have a detention basin which is gently sloped to a bottom area that we'll have in a drought-tolerant grass, carex grass, and that's again surrounded with the tree palette that I described earlier. Coast live oak trees at the entries here, and in the larger planters at the sort of turning points of the parking areas. We have a small seating passive recreation area in the center there in that triangle, where we'll have some drought-tolerant grass and shade trees.
All right. Thanks, Martha. You know, one thing that might be beneficial to help everybody remember is maybe just reading really briefly the good comments at the beginning of the last minutes that I'll just run through them really quickly. The board appreciates the generous setbacks and significant amount of open space along Foothill and finds the project provides minimal visual impact to the scenic 154 due to significant planting along the property line that will in time provide visual screening. The buildings will be broken into several elements and not perceived as one large building, and the floor elevations are 5 feet apart and will vary in height. Number 2, the board appreciates the continuous parking lot circulation as designed. Number 3 just lists the compatibility findings were all met, and I think that the rest of them were the ones that were gone over in the presentation. But I wanted to just read those really quickly for the board. And is that the end of your presentation?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so we have one person that would like to speak, Callum DeForest. Oh, I guess maybe before we go to public, hold on just a second, Callum. Do we have, I noticed our planner was here. Dan, would you like to speak on the project?
Sure. Thanks, Madam Chair. Dan Gullett, Associate Planner. This is one of the first times planning staff has seen this change in the proposal. This application is still in the application review process, so we would be anticipating a resubmittal of the application with these changes, in addition to information on what the perceived parking demand is for Sansom and information on traffic impacts of the study of the project, which we haven't seen yet. So that's where staff's at in the review for Planning Commission.
Okay, so you're going to be requesting a parking study that addresses a specific use as on this property, and it might vary from the previous parking study that was done, or was there a parking study that was done previously that needs to be amended?
So throughout the project has met the zoning requirement for parking. The parking requirement is 1 space per 250 square feet of floor area, but the code provides if you have a building or building complex in excess of 10,000 square feet, there's a discounted rate. So if your building complex is over 50,000 square feet, you're only required to provide 70% of the parking required under the 1 per 250, and they've done that throughout. And in this new proposal, they actually exceed that by, I believe, 61 parking spaces, the 70% discount. So what the proposal is right now is somewhere between the 1 per 250 standard requirement and the requirement for larger building complexes. So we wouldn't necessarily need a parking demand study from them, but we do want to know what Sansom anticipates their parking demand is to justify this many parking spaces, because it is a large percentage of the property.
What was the last part you said? The last thing you said was it's what? It's over the percentage of...
Because the proposal is to provide so many parking spaces beyond what's required. We'd like to see justification for that.
Oh, justification for providing too many as
Yes.
opposed to not enough.
Yeah.
Okay, that's unusual. But, all right, I just wanted to clarify that. So go ahead, Callum.
Yeah, thank you. So, obviously, if this is going to be a medical building, there are going to be lots of people coming in and out, and and certainly more parking. The more parking you have, the better. So I don't see why that's a problem. I commend Mr. Tobes for developing this property and getting rid of that eyesore of a gas station. That'll be a great contribution. And also his landscape we've got a virtual forest of trees in what is now sort of a desert. So that'll be a great help. But the item I'm here for, or the corn I want to blow, so to speak, is Pearl Chase's vision for Santa Barbara was to introduce an overall Spanish Revival design. And since this structure is right sort of on an entrance to Santa Barbara, it would be nice if it had a more Spanish Revival look than a Art Deco look. Was there any reason for that choice of that architectural style as a design element? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on this item? Do we have any letters? No letters. We saw one letter. One was sent to us about parking. That's why I asked that question. And so I'll return it back to the board with questions. Gary, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do have a couple, and they're minor questions. On the canopy, building A, the canopy coming in, I'm looking at the landscaping, and it appears that the canopy stops right at the entrance to the building, but on the architectural, it looks like it goes across the entry of the driveway. What is it that you're proposing?
By code, the canopy needs to cover the drop-off area, so the automobile would pull up right in front of the canopy, person would get out protected by the rain, so the canopy overhang comes right out to that edge.
So On the, this is building B then I'm looking at then.
Yeah.
And then building B, it goes out quite a bit farther, is that right?
Yeah, because the drop-off point is further out,
Yeah, building B, as I said, has 3 bays coming all the way out to here.
Okay.
So there's 2 bays in building A and 3 bays in building A, just by
I
the
see,
nature
it's
of the
because
layout.
the elevation is because of the diagonal of the road. And
Yeah,
seeing some
the-
car way back here, that's why.
Yeah, the drop-off area, because the arrangement of the parking needs to be further out, so there's 3 bays as opposed to 2.
Okay. And the skylights that are on top of these canopy, what are they proposed? They're not plastic or bubble as
No,
the
No, they will be high
Pyramid.
quality.
Yeah.
This is a
Pyramid type, it looked like on the,
pyramid type glass of some sort.
pyramid glass. Okay, they're not going to be domed or something like that.
No.
Okay.
This
oh,
is
it does
gonna
look like
be-
they're domed on the sections.
They look like
It's a
those?
drafting error, it's a drafting error.
Okay. Thank you. That's my only question.
Paul?
I have one question. Trying to remember, the previous landscape architect had some concerns about drainage and the planting along this way, and I'm staring at it and I don't see it as a problem, but maybe there was a change in the plan. You're now planning on storing all the water here, the detention, so is this a bioswale of any sort, or was there a change made from the previous time that you were here with the landscaping along that?
I don't think that there is a change proposed there from the previous description, and I don't exactly know, maybe Richard, you can speak to this, exactly how the grades work in that area. Certainly, we're not going to be flowing toward the parking lot, so I'm imagining there is some sort of a swale proposed.
But there's no like water storage happening in this zone?
I do not believe that we are detaining water in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no change since the last time we saw you on these regard, and obviously the bank of the off-ramp comes down and then lifts up again, so there will be that swale.
And then the water that's here is actually going to get piped to this location?
That's correct. Or there's an additional one now right along this area here on this building.
I would predict that most of the landscape areas will have some kind of a swale or rain garden quality to them so that they will detain to some degree.
That was my question.
All right, thanks, Paul. Chris, do you have any questions?
I just have one. Actually, maybe 2. What was the reasoning behind, this is sort of earth mounding, right? Is that for sound and visual reduction for the first floor folks?
Well, it's actually for the physical realities of the site in order to, to handle this. It's a gentle sloping, but after a while, when you have the width of the buildings being flat, you need to navigate that and
It's
handle it.
about 20 feet of fall. Of course, that's from one
Right,
end of that site.
20 feet all the way.
I see.
So we have 10 here, so we're picking up a low entry here and berming up here
I
too.
see. So this is quite a bit higher than it drops down from the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have that on the site section?
I think we have perhaps a suggestion of it in one of our sections.
It's kind of here. It's kind of right there.
Yeah, right. Oh, sorry. There it is.
Okay.
And you're saying that that's about 10, doesn't look like 10 feet from here, but
No,
it
the
could
20 feet is all the way. So.
be. Right. But I think you mentioned,
Well, I don't know what the
10,
numbers
but
are.
I
it's-
see. Okay. That's fine. We can go back to the site plan.
okay.
And I guess that kind of might answer my next question, but to me having these sidewalks and follow the straight line of the road. I don't know if it's my own pet peeve, but
Is this a comment or a question?
this is a question.
Backgrounds.
I'm wondering if there's any way we can meander these sidewalks along both stretches of roadway.
On Sienna Santa Ynez, I'd actually like to do that on Foothill. That's the Caltrans. It's a Caltrans
Okay.
right away.
Got it.
Looks like the property line runs right down the middle of the sidewalk. And that's an existing sidewalk.
No, it's...
That's a new sidewalk. It's going right down the middle.
Okay. Well, I guess that's Caltrans, but here, yeah, my question was there an opportunity to maybe provide some movement with that sidewalk?
Actually, we'll have to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I just had one question. It was actually just related to the public speaker's question of, just out of curiosity, why did you decide for the deco style?
There was a significant discussion on that, but I think, we were matching, and it was more the adjacent properties and so forth were very eclectic, and we felt that this was more compatible with the neighborhood.
Okay. All right. Comments? Gary?
Well, there's quite a bit of difference between the last plan and this one architecturally, and to be honest with you, I'm enjoying it a lot more. I think that the way that you've gone with these columns, and you're increasing it to be much more an enjoyable piece of architecture. I think the details are more in tune to the Art Deco than they were before. And before it was clear to me it was Art Deco style before as well. But now I think you're getting a better balance of it, and I'm actually enjoying this building. The reduction of the building, I mean, that's great. It's less building on the site. It's still the same height. Kind of concerned about colors on this. I think less color would be better, and I see a lot of colors on this, so I'm kind of concerned about the amount of colors on this deco building, but that we're not there yet. And I would be concerned about the roofing elements, how you're going to
I think
work
the
that.
intensity of the colors on the exact drawings is too much, so we'll get there down the road.
Yeah, but I'm in favor of the project. I think it's well conceived.
Thanks, Gary. Paul?
Follow up on that. I like the building a lot. I've liked it before. I'm not worried about the colors. If the intensity is a little bit great, but having variety is fine from my perspective. I like the spires and the detailing and the design work that you're dealing. The one minor concern that for the next iteration or eventually is the soffit detail that happens up here on the second floor. And if you walk down State Street and you take a look at the soffit of existing buildings, you'll see that some people have been successful at it, and some people have wimped out on it. And because you are where you're located, you don't have a lot of pedestrian traffic. You don't need a really high, ornate soffit detail, but you need some kind of rhythm that's happening up there, a thumpingness or a little recessed coffer. It's a little hint of something that happens in between your brackets, which are your downspouts, and it can be of some modern theme of some sort. But that is not here yet, but there's an opportunity there that I'd like you to not ignore, because then it would look like a...
Perhaps some scoring is all that you need.
Scoring, or even just a little cheap fiberglass thing underneath it. Well, less expensive. You don't have to go with the big fancy, cast concrete stuff, because it's the location of town where you're at doesn't need to have the same level of...
I hear what you're saying.
But that's what I sense or I see. The outdoor area for the staff, it's not really designated as a staff thing, but there will be staff in there that are going to have sandwiches and things. And I'm just thinking maybe having more of a designated, how do I get to this triangle? And if this was just continued with some scoring pattern or color. I do know with commercial you have to provide handicap access to the trash enclosures nowadays, and that's different. But I'm just, if there's a way of getting somebody in here for afternoon lunch break.
There's also an area at the
We were more
west end of the
anticipating.
building.
We were more anticipating this and here. So 1,
And
2,
there's a spot
and
over
3.
here as well.
So
I just sense that people will be going out here and they'll have to cut through the parking
Good point.
lot, lose a parking space. The city will be happy. They like to see less parking. It's a new era we're in. Other than that, it's a great project.
Thanks, Paul. Chris?
Yes, I think it's also, definitely heading in the right direction. It's a nice looking project. I like the Art Deco style for this area. Few minor items, really. As far as the trees in the parking lot, I'm not really convinced that the Australian willow is a real great canopy. I mean, it's 20 feet, maybe 25. To me, it's more like sort of has a rounded habit and kind of like a lollipop tree. So I would encourage you to, maybe think of another tree that might have more canopy to it and reduce that heat island effect, which is sort of the intent of those trees. And then, there's some minor, plant choices, like the agapanthus, to me, doesn't necessarily fit in with all the gray-greens blue-greens that are happening. Same thing with the bird of paradise, unless maybe they go over with the palms that you have set up or something like that. But I guess and then, I don't know, this might be a question for staff, but is there any way to open up a line of communication with Caltrans to see about doing something with that sidewalk along Foothill?
Yeah, we actually have been in discussion with Caltrans about that, about the frontage along Foothill for this project. The difficulty is Caltrans has its own standards that it tends to abide to, and we have our desires from ABR and the pedestrian master plan, how it defines how sidewalks and parkways should work. So we're in those discussions, and in your thought to have a meandering sidewalk, we'll pursue that with Caltrans also.
Okay. And I think that's it for my comments. Thank you.
All right. I don't have anything else to add. I like the project. I liked it before, and I still like it, and I appreciate the additional parking and being attentive to the needs of the future tenant, and I agree with the other comments that were made. So I think that although I understand the Kellum's concern about the architectural style, I can appreciate an architect and an applicant wanting to always not have a Spanish building, and if that's what they want, I think it's appropriate for this particular site. So I would entertain a motion for this would be an indefinite continuance to either back to the full board or possibly put to the planning commission if the maker of the motion sees that it might be ready for that. Anybody want to take a stab?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Indefinite continuance on to Planning Commission with the following comments. The board likes the direction the project is going. The board enjoys the Art Deco style and the detailing that is forthcoming. And I have this in front of me. The board would like the architect to bring color studies to the next meeting. The architect is to provide some details for the soffit of the upper story roofs. And the architect is to study the plant, the parking tree plant type, and to perhaps find one with a larger canopy. And the last item is the applicant or architect to study an opportunity to get a pedestrian sidewalk to the lawn area at the triangular island in the parking lot.
Do I have a seconder of the motion?
And
Seconded by Gary.
May I be so bold to suggest that the previous motion, the bigger picture items, be included for benefit of the Planning Commission's review?
If I can look at those real fast, they probably are similar to what was just handed to me. Oh, item 1 for sure, because that stays the same. The board appreciates the generous setbacks. And item 2 is the board appreciates continuous parking lot flow. That stays the same. And item 3, which is the compatibility analysis, which is what was handed to me. So that stays, moves forward.
Could you also add the potential for meandering the sidewalk on Santa?
The board would like the applicant to study opportunities to meander the sidewalk along the Santa Gitas
And Foothill.
and Foothill.
And Foothill, if possible. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention by Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And our chair is going to take over item 2.
Paul, when you were talking about the soffit, you're also talking about the cornice, right? Coming down, not just the soffit underneath, but the cornice as well. The band right above, below the. Not just the soffit underneath, right? The soffit is just the eave.
The part between the horizontal where the window was and the
Yeah, that's not the soffit. Right. I was saying this part here, not just that part. But yeah. That's all right.
Kind of ruined the rest of it.
Yeah, but the house is all Christmased out.
No, I know. I realized it was a bad time for my photography.
Yeah, I mean you could, but you're gonna have Christmas lights everywhere.
Okay, I think if you do you have minutes on this, Tony? Okay. So our last meeting was 15th of November. Is that right?
Correct.
Continued 2 weeks to the full board with the following comments. Return with details of all typical panel mounting conditions. Follow the pitch of the roof with panels. Provide consistency throughout the project regarding placement of solar panels relative to adjacent roof elements. Balance and simplify the solar panel layout wherever possible to minimize jogs in arrays. Show locations of roofing material changes for roof access. Concrete, that is concrete S-style. Push solar panels back from roof edges, particularly in locations which abut the public way. Okay, if you could just state your name for the record.
My name is Bill McReynolds, Vice President of Development with City Ventures, the
Okay.
developer and builder.
Addison Marks with SunPower Corporation.
Okay.
So per the board's last direction from the last meeting, Mr. Marks took the comments back to SunPower and Hayward and had the draftsman relook at the layout of the solar panels on each building. So included in your packet, you'll see a site plan of each of the buildings, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then moving through, we have the revised photovoltaic layout for each building. So what I'd like to do is have Mr. Marks go through each building and speak about how we addressed the board's concerns.
Okay.
Yes, so we took the board's recommendation, and where possible, we moved the solar arrays off the eave. We still had to keep the 3-foot clearance for the fire marshal guidelines, so in some cases it was not possible, but about half of them we were able to move it off the eave. We were also able to bunch the solar panels in more of a uniform fashion in some of the arrays. Other ones was not possible, but we did eliminate as many of the L shapes or the dog legs that were brought about in the last meeting. And we
basically worked along the roof lines of the structure to make it as good looking as possible.
And so what you have before you is the photovoltaic layout for each of the plans, each of the buildings, excuse me. And then on the we have the roof design following in terms of where we're proposing the concrete S-tile along the public border. So it would maintain the first two lifts would be the S-tile. First two lifts would be the clay barrel tile, and then behind that would be the concrete S. But then along the backs of the building, if I could flip through here, I have two microphones.
Yeah, just get that out of the way from
the pages. So you'll see where all of the barrel tile is, and then where it's not would be where we'd be able to essentially access and maintain the photovoltaics of the building. And then the details regarding the mounts are on the last page.
Okay. So the barrel tiles are right at the edge, and then
Right.
you're using S-tile up here. Is that it?
Correct. Because we have to get on the roof to maintain these quarterly. Initially with the initial there's obviously the install of the panels themselves, and then there's the adjustment period, and then we go through a maintenance, quarterly of the for either the wiring or the cleaning of the panels.
Okay. Okay. So, let's see. So you follow the pitch of the roof with the panels. Am I right? All
as much as we could.
Yeah.
Yes.
As much as you could, or everywhere?
Everywhere we could. The biggest impediment is that 3-foot fire clearance, which we can't get too close to the top of the roof. So everywhere we could.
Well, let's find out where we can't. If you could just show us where we can't.
Why don't you reread the questions?
Yeah. Follow the pitch of the roof with panels.
So if the
That was it.
3 and 12, all the roof panels are 3 and 12?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's about a 4-inch setback with the stanchions, and it follows the pitch of the roof. Correct.
Okay, yeah.
All locations.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite understand.
Sorry, I wasn't
the
clear on
other
question. Yeah.
Okay. So we have the details of all the mounting conditions. We could just go over that one. I see one here.
But it's the same mount on all of the.
Okay. And so these would just go at one of the barrel tiles then when they go like this. This would be at the top one, and then they'd come in like that. I mean, this here is for a flat roof or a flat finish type roof.
So that's why
So-
the detail specifically deals with the concrete S.
Okay, so this will flash up over there. Okay.
And this is going to be flexible things?
So this will flash up over the top of this metal top flash.
Pitch pocket? No.
Water intrusions are, we want to minimize much water intrusion as possible. So
Is there any locations where you're not going in the direction of that you're going to need to increase the height of the solar panels?
No, there's not.
There's not. So they're all going to be at the pitch of the roof. So this is, you don't have a dimension on there, but that you said it was like 4.5 inches above the roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 inches.
And we have this metal bottom flashing is, or the roofing mastic is on, it's here. So the metal, what is that metal made out of?
It's a rubberized boot flashing that sits below the tile to protect the roof penetration. So think of it as just a standard plumbing vent flashing system.
But the metal on top, sorry, see this little metal on top? I guess what I'm getting at is that what is the finish of this, and will that stand out against the red tile? And can we get that in some sort of color that is closer to the color of the tiles, so that it doesn't punch out as being?
I don't think you'll see it because you'll have the stanchion sticking up from the roof, and then a connecting bar across, connecting the different stanchions with the solar panels above them. So I don't really think they would be seen. I mean, you could have the roofer paint them, but I don't think you'll ever see them.
Except from this end, you think this little piece here?
No, because I think the panel's going to hang over sufficiently, because those are each about a foot back from the inside of the panel. So I don't think you would see them.
So these panels are supposed to hang over or end here like this detail?
They hang over.
Oh, so this detail is incorrect? This one just has it, you know, like an L bracket, so it looks like the end of it here.
Yeah, they usually sit. At the bars here. Yeah, that's more accurate. So you'd have a bar here with the racking system with the panels that would sit above the rack. So I guess your point is on the rack.
I'm looking at this metal thing here, and it's standing out, you know. These big.
We're happy to colorize it to match the brick.
Okay, we'll come back with. I think I understand. We'll come back with some comments and. Okay, I think you've talked about consistency throughout the project regarding the placement of solar panels relative to adjacent roof elements, to minimize jogs on arrays, show locations of roofing material changes for roof act. You've done that. Concrete style. Okay, and then pushing the panels back from the roof edges. Okay. So I think do you have any further things to add to the presentation? Then, because then I'll bring it back to the board for questions.
No, okay. No additional comments.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to first public comment. Do we have any letters from the public? Anyone in the? Okay, so I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Keith? Gary?
The only question I had was on the access. On the you've got the access at the gable ends of the roof. Is that correct? Or are they all hips? Are they hips all the way around? I'm not recall. Where you were talking about? You were talking about the maintenance access. Can you turn to that plan, please? So, this wasn't it.
This way, yeah, sorry. So one more page.
Okay, so this is the tile, and the grays indicate where you're going to put the two-piece mission tile, and then where it's not grayed out, this area here, and what I was wondering is how this corresponds with your fire department access or your access. That it didn't appear to me like this was the area that you accessed it. You know, here. So I'm finding it, and also what I also find curious is that we need a section of roofing that's this big, from here to here, in order to access a man to get up there and access the panels.
The idea was to make it as flexible as possible for the access on that. In terms of fire, we did not, from the access point, did not consider the fire route.
So the route for the fire route is not necessarily the same route for the
that is correct.
For the access of the panel.
Correct. So the maintenance would be, and so here we were just, basically they would be aware that they have this area here to access maintenance, as opposed to giving them one, point here. Obviously, with the ladders that they're going to be having, it's going to be, we're trying to give them as much flexibility.
Okay.
Okay, Paul? Just leave that for a sec. What I guess I understood is that the entire third floor is S-tile, except for the first two courses, which is going to be two-piece.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter, this whole entire section is S-tile, and the S-tile is walkable.
Correct.
It's only this area that's going to be two-piece, because that's our starting course kind of thing, what we see from below.
Correct.
Okay. can we go to a site plan or a roof plan that has the panels shown?
Want to go to the same one?
Yeah, what the heck. I have two concerns, and one of them is a detail I'm looking for is the detail that happens here at the bottom, because really this panel is basically it stops at the roof or even overhangs the gutter, or what's the configuration at this point. And you see right here, does that say 11 inches? There's 11 inches, 1 foot. Okay, 1 foot between the actual edge of the roof and the panel. And go over to another one. Another one, okay. I saw somewhere that there was actually flush. This one. Oops. There's only 4. I missed it. Well, one place I thought there was a flush condition. Maybe not. Go back through these a little slower. Okay. Okay, next one. That's it? There's only 3 buildings? But one's repeated twice. Okay. Okay, all right. So there's no case in which this panel is right up to the edge. This is the bottom. This is the toe, which equals this condition. Okay. So I guess what I would like to see is additional information, because I'm concerned about how from below we're going to see the 2-piece starter course, the roof overhang, and the gutter, and then how much is this a panel is going to show, or is there a possibility of pushing this back to have at least 12 inches or 18 inches at the bottom, which would happen here too, which then affects your 3-foot walking space at that point. So is there a way to move all these guys forward, or because you need the 3 feet here, there isn't any room to be had?
That's exactly right. That's why in this one here, I had to keep the 3 feet. You can't push these panels up anymore because they would enter into the path here. So if you see we're barely infringing here, but we can probably get a variance. But you can't push these up because this racking system needs to be consistent with these modules. So I couldn't push these up a foot and leave these where they are. So the only option in this array would be to eliminate these 2 panels and push the whole thing up. But what we tried to do is get the same amount of power to each unit. Otherwise you've got this, well, his system's bigger than mine, and we're trying to keep consistency throughout the project.
So all 3 buildings are basically 1 point, or all 4 buildings?
1.8 kilowatts per unit.
You couldn't rotate those 2 panels 90 degrees so that they're long directions, going opposite from what they are now.
If you would have asked me last time we were together, I would have said no, but since then I have seen we do have a way to probably turn that 90 degrees.
So you can.
Yeah, I did see something recently.
Yeah, I think that this
Put it in a portrait style.
This needs a little bit of rework right here, I think. Okay.
Well, I still don't think.
Chris?
Sorry. Well, that would still, if he turned it though, how much would you pick up if you?
What it looks like here is you may have an opportunity, like if you took, you could see that this bunch here can move up and be from here to here, and it's just to work out between these last 4 here, what's the best association with that edge and how that works out. So this may need another study, but this is a situation where it's very difficult to have that work architecturally for us. So, yeah, Chris, you have a question?
I didn't until that last statement. And I know that last time I had asked about being able to rotate those 90 degrees so that we could eliminate some of these extra dog legs and such. So if that is a possibility, that might open up some additional doors for redesign on where we do have these L's happening. Like, for instance, these 2 could be, make that one large. Is that feasible?
Well, the whole
I probably should be doing this up here, but
yeah.
Just for the
let's go to A3, if you would. That's 2 pages up. So yes, we were just looking at, instead of this being an L, if we could take these 2 and put them alongside those, it would make one big rectangle. Is that feasible?
We would have to change the whole entire array here. think I could do, let's see, 5 to 25, 6. I don't think you can eliminate the dog legs completely, even if we take that approach.
Right. Understandable. But to reduce those as much as possible would be helpful. For instance, this would look more like that. And it seems like there are a number of places where that could be done. So that eliminates this. And then therefore you have, a simple rectangle as opposed to an L shape.
Because of the racking system, you can't mix a portrait and a landscape array. So in other words, this whole array would have to be either portrait or landscape. You can't intermix.
You would have separate racks for this anyways, because you'd have a rack for these four, and then a rack for these two. So these two would have a rack, and then these ones would have a rack. So you're doing a separate racking anyways.
I was told by my designer that the entire array would either have to be in a portrait or landscape fashion per array. So I can have these portrait and these landscape, but not mix them because of the racking. I will double check that.
Yeah, I would prefer you double check that. The racking system seems pretty basic to me, and you should be able to put those supports where you need them.
Is this another case here where we have an edge?
In this case, I couldn't raise the array layout anymore because of that 3-foot fire.
Okay. Anyway, Mr. Chair, those are all my questions.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so I think we have here's an area I'd like to. Where is this in the whole in the whole project of the?
Building 300.
Yeah.
So that's this building here.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to do is identify these as we look at these different buildings here, and we look at the areas that are problematic, like that. Is where would that show up in the whole project, like in the orientation that this is turned?
So that, what you're looking at right there,
yeah,
is inside here.
This is building 300.
Yeah, this is.
Okay, so and then so then this here is.
It's a corner condition here.
Is that?
Is that this? You see this pop out right here? So over here. So you're looking at this area here, and then you see the notch right here.
Okay, just saying.
So what you're looking at is this area right there.
Get my bearings here. Oh yes, so this is spin all the way around. Okay, so we have right here is all condition, right?
Correct. That's what you're talking about.
We have one here. Let's look at the other one. Let's look at where is this condition here? 100.
So building 200.
That's building 100.
And 2.
Right?
Oh, 100. Yeah,
that's building 100.
So that is this condition. Let me just verify. Yeah. So that's this condition here.
So that's right here, right?
Correct.
Okay, let's look at it. Building 200 and so where is this on there? Okay, this is out on the street.
This is the courtyard.
Okay, let's see where this one is here. Building 200.
Building 2 here.
Okay, so right along here. Okay, and that's building 4. But can we see the roof of that?
You have that solar plan for 400?
I think it's the next sheet. No, come back. It looks like I saw some panels back on this one here.
Next.
Yeah. Right here.
Oh, there it is.
That looks better than the others. And it's right there. Oh, there's an upper edge. So this is a lower roof?
Correct.
This is the upper. So let's see where that is on. Yeah. That's out here somewhere.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
It's out here?
It's inside here. with the roof here, stairway coming up.
Let's see, no. I think that's here.
Yeah, I believe it's
I think it's somewhere here, right?
Correct.
Somewhere here. Okay. All right, so we've isolated some stuff there. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the board for comments. Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think overall, most of the patterns are acceptable and that they're consistent. I really think we do need to see a specific detail of the rack adjacent to the eave, because this is just a really generic anywhere on the field of the roof detail, so we really can't evaluate what the potential visual impact will be because we can't see it relative to the face of the building and the eave and the overhang, and we need a vertical dimension too on how high that rack's sitting up there, so again we can really look at that. So that's number one, and then I think as the exercise that Chris just went through, the area that I really have the most concern about is that building 2 or 200 there along the edge of Montecito Street, because that's a big bank of panels that are at the public way. Again, when you're back in the bowels of the courtyard, I don't think your angle of viewing it's going to be so steep. I'm not that concerned back here, but a condition like this is right at the public way. And again, I think if you can look at what flexibility you have to turn things in a portrait orientation to give you some more flexibility would be a good thing, particularly in a case like this where perhaps doing that top array or one of the arrays in portrait could allow you to pull that back from the eave, half a panel module. That's probably going to make the difference between those things disappearing and really kind of sticking out there. So I guess what I'm saying is you're very close, and maybe just one more iteration looking at those specific kind of public way edge details that Chris has identified, and providing the rest of the information that we can really evaluate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith. Gary?
I agree with the looking to bring back, especially at the public way. I also think that some of the panels should be studied to see if you can put them in a portrait, and I believe you can put them in a portrait position to get them more into rectangular type shapes, and try to get rid of some of these dog legs, and I think there still is some ability to do that. I agree with the statement that was made about the bracketing. There isn't enough information there, and I would suggest that the applicant look at maybe an alternate method of how he flashes that. It's going to be a membrane type roof with a tile on top of it, and I believe that if you lay it out and use pitch pockets on the roof as opposed to using the flashings, it's less obtrusive and a least amount of space that's exposed to the roofing, and we won't have all of this galvanized that we're going to be seeing, or we may see. So look into different flashing methods, and perhaps that will reduce some of this potential that we have. The other thing that concerns me is how much space you need for access. I just find it a little unusual that you need a 30-foot wide section of roofing that is for mechanical access when it's a by-foot access. And I would look to reducing that mechanical access because it's at the roof's edge, and we're going to be seeing a detail at the roof edge that in some areas that's not going to be what we would call acceptable. We're making an exception to let you have the the cement roof. But part of that exception, according to the ABR rules, is that you have the starter course. And by having one access area is one thing, but going in and having entire sections of eaves and saying that we need mechanical access and then skirting this rule, I don't think that's fair. So I think that you really should look at just having a small access area and designating these areas where the walking paths are.
Thanks, Gary. Paul?
I want to ask a clarification following up on what Gary said. Previous to the solar application, were you going with S-tile made out of clay, and now you're going with S-tile made out of concrete? Is that...
No, the final approval allowed for the mission on the first 2 starter courses and then concrete S.
Okay.
Behind.
Because I think Gary doesn't quite understand it, or I understand it different from him, so I'm just trying to clarify it to make his concern go away, or alleviate, or bring it up to the forefront. I mean, just understand something. When he looks at this whole area as being for mechanical access, the roof detail here is no different than it was 2 months ago when you got final and you're under construction.
No, he's correct.
He is correct. This detail now changed?
Yes.
All of these details are changed.
Well, right, we're adding we need to add the mechanical access. I think it's clear on this one.
Oh, fine. So
this would have previously been the.
His mic's not on.
Oh,
there you go.
This would have been the clay barrel tile previously for the first 2 starter courses, and we're proposing to allow for mechanical access. The concrete S would go to the edge.
Ooh,
here.
and that would be here.
I think.
Whereas, like,
Based on
almost
Mr.
the whole
Moschel's
project.
comments, he's saying reduce. I mean, the note I'm taking is reduce access where possible and as needed. Well, my comment is for each panel. Like, I might need a different access for different arrays.
It's like that whole edge there is now S-tile.
No. This whole edge is still S-tile.
Right.
And then he was going to... a barrel tile. This was going to be 2-piece mission tile, and then all of this was going to be 1-piece S-tile for the field. And then he was going to take it up the edge. But your old design is right here. You had this as a 2-piece, and it curved down into the...
Correct.
And why can't you do that now?
Well, we just need access points that we can maintain the tiles.
And
so we're trying to give it...
You've never shown us this detail.
That's why I'm bringing it out.
But we have... Okay. Then what my comment is, before we make this change, we need to see what this detail looks like, and we need to compare it to what was previously approved, so that we can see that if there is going to be a loss of character, quality, aesthetic. So you were on board. I wasn't sensing that.
Gary. Good catch.
My comment, we're working with you on the panels. Do you understand what Keith was saying about having some details?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of the note I took based on was rack detail on eave with the vertical dimension, then along building 200 panel. What can we do with that?
Well, let me
I think are we on building 200?
Let me show you 2 details, and this is just my rough sketch. But this is the typical eave. This is your gutter, whatever your overhang is, and wherever the roof panel is. We need to know what this overall height is above the tile, and we need to know really how much back you're going to be. If you're going to be 1 inch or you're going to be 12 inches back. And this is for all these lower conditions. And then at the side, where that right over here where this 11 inches occurred, that'll be something similar to this, where you have your roof and however it happens, and however you terminate this, we need to see that architecturally, the detail as well as the overall height. So those are the 2 details at least. You can always provide more that we don't have on this presentation.
Yeah. And then and the bracket itself, that if it could be designed to be less conspicuous, in color and size or bulk of it, to blend better into the tile system. So comments from Chris?
I have no additional comments, Mr. Chair, other than I agree with the rest of the board members and what their comments.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so we can make a motion based on all the things we talked about. We'd be good to go.
Mr. Chair, I'll stand
Thanks,
back
Keith.
And I'll ask the applicant, do you want a 2-week continuance or?
I'm going to ask my engineer.
Well, I guess it kind of doesn't matter because we're at the end of the year, so.
Yeah, when's your next? Do you have one more meeting before the end of the year? Till the next.
The very next
oh,
one.
Let me.
January 10th.
Well, how about I just state it like this, continuance back to the full board at the next full hearing with the following comments. Provide architectural details of the typical eave and gable end conditions illustrating the relationship of the proposed solar panel mounting to the architecture. Include dimensions, both vertical and horizontal setbacks of the panels. Study ways to minimize the access areas on the roof for servicing the equipment. Study or investigate ways to use the panels in a portrait pattern to allow for increased setbacks at eave conditions and possibly simplify panel configurations. And of particular concern are the arrays at building 200 at the public way and building 4 along the public way and building 2 or 1 rather.
Yeah.
Everything but 3.
And this is less, but still, I think if you can solve these, we'd be happy if you could look at
Common
that.
solution.
Yeah.
That's the motion.
Excellent. Do we have a second? Second by Chris. Under discussion.
In your discussion, if you can, before you come back, go with the fire department and check to see what kind of clearance. Is the fire department requirement local or is it a state requirement?
Statewide.
And it's 3 feet?
Yes.
And where I was
It's a
wondering...
guideline, so it's not.
It's a guideline, because I noticed some places you were 2'11", and other places you were 3'6". You weren't consistent, and that's fine because you might be able to buy a little space. Because what I don't understand is why couldn't you say your access was from this side of the roof and take these up to like maybe a foot from the ridge? Because access is still available on the other side of the ridge. It was just the way I guess I'm pushing the numbers a little bit, but you know, if you're on the fire and the roof and you're trying to put out the fire, you'll do it from this side. It's not like this was a vertical wall that you had to provide the 3-foot clearance. So if before you come back to us, if you could take plans to the fire department and show them and see where they're willing to massage the numbers. But that's just under discussion.
Okay. And just under discussion, just for the benefit of you guys, and if you do consider moving these up, likewise when we look at a panel at the edge of a roof, we also, careful that if you bring the panel too close to the ridge of the roof, it then destroys the ridge line of the roof too. So you also have that,
Right.
you also can't go too close
It's all
either.
a balancing
so,
act.
yeah,
because
it's a balancing
you've got
act.
balancing how much power you want to provide versus the aesthetics, and
Yeah.
so we've massaged it, and we'll continue to try it.
Okay.
Make it better.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay, so we have motion and table. All those in favor of the motion say aye. 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 Motion carries. Thanks. We see you back here next year. Merry Christmas. We'll make this work. Sure. We'll make it work. It'll work. We'll get there. Okay, so our next project of the evening, 1216 East Montecito Street. Project requires environmental assessment. Is this a new project, Tony?
Send out the notes. This one.
Okay. New project. We have 4 people for public comment. No, we don't have anybody yet.
As long as it's enough.
Huh?
As long as it's quorum.
Okay, I guess we have no minutes then. New project. If you state your name, proceed with your presentation.
This is a project. It's on Montecito, East Montecito. It's about a block from the roundabout, or a block and a half. Millifont, and then we've got Soledad, the Franklin School there. This is pictures of the existing. This is the site, and then with the adjacent neighbor. This is looking up the street. This is the site. That's the adjacent neighbor. Again, this is the neighbor and the site. So it's a little bit mixed. Next door we've got a Spanish style, and then to the right, or I guess you could say west, we have a cottage style, and the existing is wood siding. I'd almost hate to call it cottage.
That's the deal.
Yeah, that's the side of the site.
Okay,
and
that's
then
it.
This is the front, and a close-up view of the front.
Okay. And bounded by that. Okay.
And there, if you walk up the street, or if you look at the shots of up the street, there really is a mix.
Okay.
So just to go over what the scope of the project is, we're doing 2 dwellings, or a main dwelling and an accessory building.
Okay.
It's an R2 zone lot, 5,300. So we're using the R2 between 5,000 and 6,000 square foot ordinance to build this. The ordinance allows us to have up to 1,200 living space. So we've got 1,196. And an accessory dwelling unit of up to 600, so we have 600. We have 3 parking spaces, 2 in garage, 1 outside. These 2 can be tandem, or this one can interfere with the maneuver of this one, as long as they're for this unit, which they're noted. And then this is the parking space for the 600 square foot.
Okay.
And the lot is already basically graded. We're keeping the existing grading. It's about a 2% towards the front, and it's got a low retaining wall, existing retaining wall there. So we're just doing continuing this hedge that exists in the front, but keeping it at 42.
Okay.
So the front unit, we've got a front porch, goes into the living dining area, kitchen, bedroom downstairs, common bathroom. You go upstairs to 2 bedrooms, 1 being a master. And then outside access, we have the laundry room for this unit. And here's the elevation. So we've got the siding with the wood trim around the windows, windowsill. This is the front elevation. I've got open beam for the front porch. So you come up the front porch, and the door is on the side. And then, so once you're in there, that's the elevation of the porch. We do have a small balcony off the master bedroom facing the Riviera over the driveway. So we've got plenty of solar clearance. Very simple roof plan. We're doing hips except for the front porch, which I'm doing a gable, 5 and 12 pitch. And then on the back building, we've got the 2-car garage with the storage, one for each unit. And then I've got the washer and the dryer for this unit. And, downstairs, very simple, dining, kitchen. You go upstairs to a living room and bedroom.
I see.
And we do have a small balcony off of the living room, and that faces the front house. And it's stacked over the porch entrance to the unit. So we try to provide lots of first floor roof to give it that scale. The only place that you actually see the 2-story vertical wall is on the west side, and we do have a small brow over the door that goes out to that area. And this is the roof plan.
Okay. What kind of windows?
We're calling out vinyl windows, and at the moment we don't have grids in them, but I know that for this style, grids are normally the standard. The owner would like to keep them clear if possible, but he prefers the.
But the front building has division?
The front building, because it's at the front, I felt that this one would probably require grid. So, it's up to I'm looking to you to see if you feel that the back building also needs some.
Okay. All right. Anything else also?
That's about it.
Okay. I'd open it up for public comment. Seeing no one, I'd close that. Tony, any letters? We're okay. Back to the board for questions. Keith?
Thank you. Just a quick one on trash locations.
Well, I didn't pinpoint the trash locations. The garage is a little bit bigger than it needs to be, so we could fit them in the garage. Or I could provide an enclosure behind the front building, adjacent to the laundry.
Okay, thank you.
But you're right, I didn't specify where.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to step down from this project. I've done some work for it, so.
I see. Okay. Well, Chris?
No questions.
I'm just looking at the parking in here. You have a lot of space in here. Beyond where the cars park here.
Yeah, I wanted to provide space so that, because this parking space and the tandem are for the front unit, I didn't want to crowd this and have this tenant using the washer and dryer and asking the other tenant to move the car so that they can use the laundry.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm trying to think ahead to prevent any disputes.
Okay. And this build out here is okay.
I will make a comment that transportation will need to give us a backup modification.
Let's hear. What's the modification?
Just so that we're 80 feet 8 inches from the front of the garage to the front property line. And if you're above 75, they want we need a
turnaround.
We need a turnaround or a mod from them. So that's the one thing that I'm looking for support from the board or comments.
Okay, I'm going to Keith for comments. Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as the site planning, I think my main concern is just providing some sort of pedestrian wayfinding to the entry of the rear unit. Right now it's a little maybe just not developed. So I'd like to see that, particularly since you're having to kind of circulate adjacent to the open parking space. So I think that needs to be developed the next iteration so that there's a clear path. And find a home for the trash and the whole scheme of things so we can evaluate that. That might be part of a whole landscape plan, which we'd like to see how the open spaces are developed in that. Architecturally, I guess I would like to see the rear building just more similar to the front building as far as the fenestration, so maybe the proportions and the use of the mullions, and you have this kind of three-piece, 3-section sash. I don't know if that can be repeated somewhere to tie it in. And then I guess the only other comments would be something about the wide horizontal proportion of this second floor window over the porch seems a little awkward. Seems kind of top heavy, so you might want to study that. And then the detail where this overhang occurs at the front porch too. Maybe there's just another bracket thrown in here to kind of make all that visually come together. But other than that, I think mass, bulk, and scale and level of articulation, everything seems appropriate to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Paul?
I'll just follow up with what Keith was saying. That's all I have.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I agree with Keith's comments also. And the only additional comment that I have is regarding the north elevation, which is the elevation that faces the street. And to me, the location of the front door is sort of, you don't see it from the street. And that big blank wall there underneath the sort of entry porch is just strange to me. So I know it's a kitchen on the other side of that, so that makes things difficult. But I think even the addition of a window would help there. Even maybe it's opaque glass so you don't see right into the kitchen. But to me, it just looks vacant there, and it's not very welcoming to the street as far as visitors coming up to the property. So I would explore either another way to reveal the front door or just provide something on that blank wall that gives a sense of a pleasing entry. That's all.
Thanks, Chris. I just have a question before I make any comments. What are these two little knobs here?
Just a pot shelf.
So
they're 8 by 10s, and
do you have any elevation that shows that on the side?
Sorry, I didn't transfer those to the elevation.
Because that would be here somewhere, right?
Yes. But
that'd be in here somewhere.
Yes.
Right in here. Okay. So I agree with the comments. I think Keith kind of hit all of them. Mass, bulk, and scale, I think it looks all right. I think the back building really needs to start getting some character. And if you're going to do that with the window and door divisions, I think it needs to get up to that level to be able to be compatible with the front building on the site. So I think it stands out. If you're going to use these vinyl windows, are these vinyl windows going to be like white and then everything else gets painted?
Yes. What I usually like to do is use the white and then go with the white trim, and that makes them stand out from the body color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would at least help if you use white trim as opposed to a dark trim with the white windows set inside. I don't know if this door here is that's the laundry door. Is that particularly the design that you're looking for?
You know, that's just the block that I had in my kitchen doors.
Okay.
But, I could definitely.
Well, maybe you could study that, because I've seen a few doors like that and they're pretty. I think that you could be a much better standard than that. So we're looking at trash, pedestrian wayfinding to the second unit, trash area, rear building closer in the design styling to the front building, the north elevation, the top window, look at the proportions, mass bulk and scale in the area. Keith says a little bracket in there. Chris, you had a window on the rear building. Was that?
Well, Mr. Chair, was the north elevation of the front house.
North elevation here.
Yeah,
here.
In the porch area.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. It looks so blank as you come into that side there. So you could consider that maybe there's something that goes in there. I'm unsure as how to talk about the turnaround area, whether you need it or not. I mean, I kind of hesitate to.
If I can say something,
What's
we
your
could say
experience there?
is that it has no adverse effect to the aesthetics.
Okay.
And because really it's a technical thing that belongs in the transportation's decision making. Does it affect the aesthetics from our perspective? And the answer is no, whether it's 75 or 80 feet.
Okay, I'm good with that. So, all right, so I'm open to a motion. And we have our points. We have our notes on the...
Sure, I'll take a stab at it.
Thanks, Keith.
This be definite continuance back to full board with the following comments. The board feels that the overall mass, bulk, and scale of the project is acceptable, as is the direction of the architecture. And we have the following comments on the site planning. The board looks forward to returning with a preliminary landscape plan. Study the pedestrian access from the public way to the rear accessory unit. Provide a location for the trash enclosure. On the architecture, at resident or unit A rather, or the front unit, I'll just say. Study additional fenestration on the north wall of the front porch and the proportions of the second floor window over the porch and the detail of the second floor cantilever as it connects to the porch along the east elevation. At the rear unit, develop the fenestration and architectural detailing that more directly relates to the architecture of the front building. And with regard to the parking backup, the board does not find that a turnaround or the current configuration has an aesthetic impact.
Thanks a lot, Keith. Do we have a second? Second by Paul. Under discussion. No? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our agenda for the evening. I would say We are adjourned. Good night, Santa Barbara. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
All right? And happy